Have you ever opened your eyes in the morning and felt as if the night had stolen your strength instead of restoring it? The alarm rings, but it's not just your body that resists, it's your very soul. You lie there, staring at the ceiling, sensing that something is wrong, something deeper than a poor night's sleep. It's as if the day ahead is already heavier than you can carry, as though the act of waking itself is a silent confession that you have lost a battle you don't remember fighting. You tell yourself it's just stress, or maybe you stayed up too late scrolling through fragments of other people's lives. You think, I'll catch up on rest this weekend. But deep down, you know it's not that simple. You're not just tired, you're weary, in a way that no amount of caffeine can erase. And you begin to wonder, is this what life has become? An endless cycle of waking half alive, carrying yourself from task to task, waiting for a moment that never truly arrives? Imagine standing at the edge of a vast desert at dawn. Behind you is the night, with its deceptive promise of rest. Before you, the horizon stretches endlessly. Your canteen is already half empty, and you have no map. How do you cross this? How do you find the will to take that first step when your very bones feel as though they are asking you to stop? Nietzsche once wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what if you wake up and feel you've lost the why, or worse, that you never had one? What if the fatigue you feel is not merely physical, but the symptom of something deeper, an unspoken estrangement from your own life? You might tell yourself, this is normal. Everyone's tired. Everyone's busy. This is just adulthood. But whose voice is that? Is it truly yours, or the echo of a society that celebrates productivity over presence, motion over meaning? Perhaps you've learned to wear exhaustion like a badge of honor, proof that you're doing enough. And yet, somewhere inside, there's a quiet, persistent voice asking, enough for what? Enough for whom? Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we refuse to confront. Could it be that your morning fatigue is not just the weight of yesterday's labor, but the shadow of an unlived life pressing against you? That each day's tired awakening is the body's way of saying, you have drifted too far from yourself? And then comes the frightening possibility. What if this isn't temporary? What if you keep moving forward like this, eyes open but spirit closed, until the years blur and the desert becomes all you've ever known? You remember moments, rare and fleeting, when you woke up eager, when the day ahead felt like a path toward something real. But those mornings feel distant now, like scenes from someone else's life. And the question grows sharper, almost accusatory. Why does each sunrise feel heavier than the one before? You suspect that the problem is invisible, hiding beneath the surface of your routines, masked by the acceptable weariness of modern life. Yet you also sense it is dangerous, because it's not just draining your mornings, but quietly rewriting who you are. And so you arrive at the great, unshakable question that will not leave you. If waking up tired is not just about sleep, then what is it really telling you, and what will happen if you keep ignoring it? The answer lies deeper than you imagine, woven into your psychology, your history, and the very architecture of the world you live in. And that is where we must go next. You think waking up tired is a simple matter of bad habits or insufficient rest. But deep down, you suspect it's something far more insidious, something that seeps into your dreams and follows you into the daylight. Fatigue becomes not just a state of the body, but a language. It speaks in the heaviness of your limbs, in the reluctance of your thoughts, in the way you drag yourself through hours as though they belong to someone else. The truth is, you've been taught to treat exhaustion as an inconvenience, a minor glitch in the machinery of your life. You pop another coffee pod into the machine, scroll through headlines, rush into obligations. You treat the symptom. But in doing so, you avoid the question. Why is the machine consuming so much of you in the first place? Carl Jung would tell you that what you are experiencing is not merely physical depletion, But psychic fatigue, the erosion of vitality that comes from living out of alignment with the deeper currents of your own nature. The modern world, with its unrelenting pace, demands that you wear masks: the competent professional, the agreeable friend, the reliable partner. These masks are not lies, exactly, but they are incomplete truths. Over time, the effort of holding them in place drains you, because every mask you wear means leaving part of your authentic self in the shadows. Nietzsche saw this too, in a different way. He warned against herd morality, the unconscious adoption of values handed down by others. You wake up tired not just because of what you do, but because of what you believe you must do, beliefs that may never have been yours to begin with. The fatigue is not the enemy itself, but a messenger telling you, you are living someone else's life. But it goes deeper still. Society has built an intricate scaffolding of expectations around you: productivity metrics, status markers, the silent pressure to keep up. You are praised for self-sacrifice and penalized for stillness. Even your rest is commodified. Self-care is sold to you as a product, not as a birthright. The result is a subtle but constant sense that you must justify your own existence through output. And when your spirit rebels against this, it shows up as the very thing you are trying to ignore: the heaviness of your mornings. Arthur Schopenhauer, ever the pessimist, believed life was inherently a struggle against suffering, and that our constant striving was both inevitable and exhausting. But he also hinted at the possibility of release, not through denial of suffering, but through recognition of it. To see the treadmill for what it is. To realize that the fatigue you carry is not a sign of weakness, but of deep awareness. The awareness that something about the structure of your life does not fit. And yet, you have been trained to mistrust that awareness. The moment you sense it, you drown it out with distraction emails, entertainment, noise. You fear what might happen if you truly listen to your fatigue. Because fatigue is a doorway, and on the other side lies a confrontation with the fact that you may have built your days on foundations you did not choose. Aldous Huxley once remarked, "The price of liberty is eternal vigilance." But the liberty he spoke of is not only political. It is the freedom to remain awake to yourself, to resist being lulled into the comfortable sleep of conformity. Morning tiredness can be a signal that you have been seduced into that sleep long before the alarm went off that you are, in a sense, still dreaming, even with your eyes open. And here's the most dangerous part. The world around you will rarely challenge this state. In fact, it benefits from it. A weary person is less likely to question, less likely to resist, less likely to create. Fatigue makes you pliable. It makes you easier to guide not toward your own purpose, but toward the purposes of those who profit from your energy. So the roots of your tired awakenings are tangled not just in your mind, but in the cultural and economic systems you inhabit. They are fed by invisible forces, social scripts, unexamined fears, the inertia of habit. You wake up tired because you are carrying more than your body was made to carry. You are carrying the weight of a life shaped by forces you have not yet named. The question is no longer, why am I tired? The question becomes, what am I serving with my exhaustion? And this is where the unease deepens, because once you start asking that, you begin to see that the cost of ignoring it is far greater than a sluggish morning. That cost is the subject of what comes next. You think the tiredness will pass, that it's just a phase, a season. But fatigue has a way of planting roots. What begins as a temporary state can quietly transform into the architecture of your existence. And when that happens, you don't just feel tired, you become tired. The first consequence is subtle. Your perception narrows. When your energy is low, your world contracts to the bare necessities. Getting through the day, checking the boxes, avoiding anything that feels like extra effort. You stop noticing small beauties, the texture of light on the wall in the morning, the way the air smells after rain. You stop asking big questions because they demand too much of you. Your life becomes about maintenance, not creation. This narrowing of perception is not accidental. Neuroscience shows that chronic fatigue impairs the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for long-term planning, moral reasoning, and creative thought. You begin to live reactively, not proactively. Instead of shaping your days, you are shaped by them, molded by external demands and the endless ping of incoming obligations. From there, another consequence emerges. You lose your sense of authorship over your life. Each day feels like a continuation of the last, an unbroken chain of sameness. Sartre called this bad faith, the state in which you pretend your choices are inevitable, that you must live as you do, when in fact you have simply surrendered your freedom. Fatigue makes surrender feel reasonable, even wise. Why challenge the structure of your life when you barely have the strength to keep it standing? And then there is the erosion of relationships. When you are always tired, you ration your emotional energy. You listen half-heartedly. You avoid difficult conversations. You retreat into the comfort of superficial interactions. Over time, this corrodes intimacy. Friends drift. Partners feel a quiet distance growing between you. The tragedy is that you may not even notice the loss until the connection is already gone. But the most dangerous consequence is internal. Fatigue rewrites your identity. You start to see yourself as someone who is always tired. This becomes part of your self-narrative, shaping the decisions you make. You pass on opportunities, avoid risks, and talk yourself out of change because you don't have the energy. This isn't just a story, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The social system you live in welcomes this state. A tired person does not revolt. A tired person accepts that the way things are is simply the way they must be. Nietzsche might say that fatigue is one of the most effective tools of the herd. It keeps you docile without chains. You no longer need to be told what to do. You will simply continue doing what you have been doing, because imagining an alternative feels exhausting. Cognitive biases reinforce this trap. The status quo bias convinces you that the current state of affairs is preferable simply because it is familiar. The sunk cost fallacy whispers that you've already invested too much in this way of living to change course now. Your mind becomes a prison that guards itself. And here's where it becomes truly insidious. Fatigue numbs your ability to recognize that you are fatigued. Like a fish unaware of the water it swims in, you adapt to the heaviness until it feels normal. You begin to think, this is just life. The urgency to change fades, replaced by resignation. You no longer remember what it felt like to wake up with genuine aliveness. But there is a moment of flicker when you sense the truth. Perhaps it's in a sudden memory of a time when you felt awake, fully present, burning with curiosity. Perhaps it's when you see someone else living with that kind of fire and wonder why you can't. That flicker is dangerous to the systems that thrive on your exhaustion because it hints at rebellion. Viktor Frankl, who endured the most extreme conditions imaginable, wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." The unseen consequence of waking up tired every day is not just physical decline or lost productivity. It's the slow forfeiture of your inner sovereignty. And yet, this awareness, once fully faced, becomes a threshold. You realize that your fatigue is not only a symptom of the life you've built, but also a map pointing toward the life you must now claim. The next step is the hardest. It's where you stop asking, "Why am I tired?" and start asking, "What must I do to reclaim my energy and myself from the forces that drain it?" That question leads to a rebellion. And rebellions, as history shows, are never polite. A rebellion rarely begins with drums and banners. Often, it begins in silence, in the quiet but unyielding decision that you will no longer live as you have. The first spark is not rage, but recognition. The awareness that your tiredness is not inevitable, not natural, not the price you must pay for existing. To break free, you must first commit the most radical act available to you. To stop believing the story you've been told about your life. The story that says your value is measured by your productivity. That rest is a reward rather than a right. That you must always be on, responding, producing, proving. This is the soil in which your fatigue has grown. The rebellion begins when you refuse to water it. Nietzsche's challenge rings here. Become who you are, not who you are told to be. Not the efficient machine you've been trained to become, but the singular, unrepeatable force that exists beneath all your conditioning. And becoming who you are begins with subtraction, not addition, stripping away the obligations, identities, and patterns that do not belong to you. At first, this will feel dangerous. You've been taught that saying no is selfish, that slowing down is laziness, that stepping off the treadmill means falling behind. But falling behind what? The imaginary race whose finish line you've never seen? In truth, the moment you step away from it, you begin to see that there was no finish line, only the endless loop of motion without meaning. Carl Jung would tell you that reclaiming your energy means confronting your shadow, the parts of you that have been repressed in service to the masks you wear. This is uncomfortable work. It means admitting that part of your fatigue comes from denying your own desires. It means asking yourself, if I were free from all expectation, what would I do with my days? The answer to that question will not arrive fully formed, but even the act of asking it is a blow against the prison walls. History offers examples of those who have done this on a grand scale. Think of Henry David Thoreau, who left the machinery of society to live deliberately at Walden Pond, or of Nietzsche himself, who walked away from an academic career to wander the mountains and write in solitude. Their rebellion was not about chaos, but about clarity, creating the inner space to hear one's own voice above the noise. But you don't have to move to the woods or burn your bridges to begin. Your rebellion can start small, refusing to check your phone upon waking, reclaiming the first hour of your day for yourself. It can mean saying no to an obligation that drains you, even if it risks disappointing someone. These small acts are training for larger ones. Each time you choose authenticity over compliance, you recover a fragment of the energy you've been missing. There will be resistance, not only from others, but from yourself. The systems that shaped you will not want to lose their grip. You will feel the pull to return to the familiar, to put the mask back on, to keep moving in the way you always have. That's why rebellion is not a single act, but a continual stance. You do not escape once. You must keep escaping. This is where you begin to build a new value system. Instead of asking, how much can I do today? You ask, what will make me more alive? Instead of measuring success by how exhausted you are at the end of the day, you measure it by how much presence you felt in each moment. You replace the economy of depletion with an economy of vitality. A true rebellion is not merely the destruction of the old, it is the creation of the new. And when you start to live by your own values, you'll notice something. Mornings begin to feel different. You wake with curiosity instead of dread. Your body still gets tired, of course, but it is the tiredness of living fully, not the weariness of slow spiritual suffocation. Breaking free is not about escaping work, but about escaping the unconscious servitude that makes life feel like an endless march through the desert. It is about reclaiming the right to decide why you walk and in which direction. And once you taste this freedom, you realize that the ultimate act of rebellion is not to fight the world, but to live so fully that the world can no longer tell you who you are. Yet even this is not the end. Beyond the rebellion lies something greater, a truth so deep and transformative that it redefines every step you have taken until now. You've rebelled. You've stepped outside the invisible lines that once dictated your movements. You've begun to reclaim your mornings, your attention, your voice. But something still lingers, a question, quiet yet insistent. Now that I am free. Free for what? This is the moment where many stop. They escape the old prison only to wander in open space without a map. But your journey isn't about replacing one set of habits with another. It's about touching the deepest truth of all, that your life is not a series of obligations to fulfill, but a canvas you have been given to paint once. Here is the truth you've been circling. Waking up tired is not simply a sign that your body or mind is overworked. It is the soul's way of telling you that you are living in disharmony with your why. The fatigue was never the enemy, it was the compass. Every weary morning, every heavy step, every sigh you didn't notice was pointing to this realization, that without a why, the how will always crush you. Nietzsche's words return now, not as an abstract quote, but as a key. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. The mornings you woke full of energy were not magically easier. They were filled with purpose. You were aligned. Fatigue is not banished by more sleep or less work alone, but by orienting your life towards something that calls you from the inside out. This is not the cheap purpose sold to you in motivational slogans. It's not about grand achievements, fame, or what the world applauds. It is deeply personal, sometimes so small and quiet that no one else will notice it. Jung would call it individuation, the unfolding of the unique pattern that is you. It might be the work of creating beauty in a neglected corner of the world, or the courage to love without armor, or the discipline of crafting truth in words, art, or action. When you find this why, you stop measuring life by how tired you are. You begin to welcome a different kind of exhaustion, the fullness that comes after a day lived entirely awake, when your energy was spent not out of compulsion, but in service to something you chose. This is the paradox. When you live from your why, tiredness no longer feels like defeat, but like proof of having lived. And so the mornings change. You no longer wake asking, "Do I have the energy for this day?" You wake asking, "How can I bring my why to life today?" The fatigue that once felt like a warning now becomes a reminder to return to alignment when you drift. You see that the body and mind are honest. They will never let you stray too far without signaling it. But here is the most liberating part of this truth. There is no final arrival. The why is not a static destination. It evolves as you do. The call you answer at 30 may transform into another at 50. The work is to stay in dialogue with it, to remain willing to shed identities and roles that no longer fit, to keep asking even when it feels dangerous, "Am I still living my why?" The world around you will not stop trying to pull you back into the old patterns. You will still meet days of heaviness. But once you've seen the truth, you can no longer confuse tiredness from misalignment with the sacred tiredness that comes from living fully. And you will guard your mornings fiercely, because they are the threshold between who you were and who you are becoming. Perhaps the greatest gift of this realization is humility. You see that everyone you meet is carrying their own form of fatigue, some from overwork, some from unlived dreams. You begin to speak less in platitudes and more in presence. You become a mirror for others, not by telling them what their why should be, but by living yours so openly that it stirs something in them. And maybe, just maybe, one morning far from now, someone will look at you and ask how you manage to greet each day with such quiet fire. And you'll smile not because you have conquered fatigue forever, but because you have learned to listen to it, to let it lead you back, again and again, to the reason you get up at all. In the end, waking up tired was never a curse. It was the first knock on the door of the life you are meant to live. And the question it asked of you still remains. Will you answer?